We are ready to go. So, good morning. This is John Earl with SoCal Water Wars, and my guest today is Conner Everts, and we're going to discuss the life, times, and work of Melanie Winter. She was Los Angeles's most visionary environmental leaders, or one of them, and devoted nearly 3 decades of her life to restoring the Los Angeles River and reimagining the city's relationship to water. Conner, you knew Melanie for 30 years. Is that right?
A little bit over 30 years, John. Thank you for this opportunity. Um,
So,
Go ahead.
First of all, why does the Los Angeles River need to be? Give us a little history about the Los Angeles River. What happened to it so that it needs to be restored, and what was Melanie's vision in that regard? How did she get involved in that work?
Sure. I actually like to start with a little background and then I'll move into the LA River and the context. So, this gets personal. Melanie passed away a few months ago, but I met her in Ojai, where I lived, after I had done the Mono Lake ride, which was a bicycle ride, the victory ride with 100 people from LADWP to Mono Lake in the Eastern Sierra, 6 days, 12,500 feet of climb, and across the Mojave Desert. So I thought I was in pretty good shape until I was riding in the east end of Ojai, which is the hilly part, and this skinny woman passed me on just a regular bike going up the hill. And I thought, well, who's this? No one passes me. So I passed her. Then she passed me again. And we got reaching the peak of the hill, and I passed her again. We went downhill. And after that, we became friends. She had been a dancer, moved from San Fernando Valley when she was young to New York City, and was an actress as well. But she was very interested in water and environmental issues and ended up working as an event planner originally with Lewis McAdams, the founder of the Friends of the LA River. He's an old beat poet, had a large board, and she put on an event successfully. She was very outgoing. Did not have, I didn't find this out until recently, did not have a college education, but came from kind of a school of deep intellectual interest in issues. So she dove right in and ended up becoming the executive director. The reason the LA River was so important, and during that time there was so much discussion, was when it flooded in the big floods of 38, the time then was for building dams and corralling wild urban rivers into concrete trapezoid channels. Um, the LA River used to flow and had a large floodplain, not only across the San Fernando Valley down to Long Beach, but once in a while it would change course and go out to Marina del Rey to the west. But once they put it in the channel, this huge amount of water, including all the pollution that it would carry and everything else, would end up very quickly down in Long Beach Harbor. The idea that Dorothy Green, both Melanie's and my mentor, and a matriarch of many of the environmental groups, like Heal the Bay and what is now called the Council for Watershed Health, that actually started as a group called Unpaved LA, and POWA, Public Officials for Water and Environmental Reform. Another one that I'm still on the board of called California Water Impact. So Dorothy had a big influence on a lot of us, and especially Melanie. But the LA issue came up because we're talking about how can we better make use of the water? How can we get it to recharge into our groundwater basins? How can we create recreation and access to the river in a way that we never had before? This has been going a long, ongoing process. The Army Corps of Engineers, who traditionally built dams and conveyance and channels for flood control, sometimes they'd say recreation, had a change of heart. Although Melanie was always challenging. I think that's probably her biggest strength. She wasn't an easy person sometimes. She was very direct. She did her homework. She knew the issues. She had a vision, as you said. She was a true environmental visionary. She didn't represent any single group after that. After staying with Dorothy Green, upstairs in her old house where many of these environmental organizations started. Um, we suggested to her, and she already, I think, realized that the best idea was to have her own organization. So she started the River Project around LA River, and discussions that were going on with a task force, which ultimately has become a proposal, a project still needed to be implemented and fully funded, but that she would then challenge that the Army Corps was really not fully representing the nature-based solutions that she had looked at for so long. And the other part of that was, and I'll fill it in a little bit more, but was called the Sepulveda Dam Basin. Did you have a question, John?
Well, I'm just wondering. So she's dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers. What other with the city?
Well, the city of Los Angeles, which had a task force that we both sat on a long time ago in the 90s, with the county of Los Angeles, with the various jurisdictional cities that align the LA River from the top of a watershed, the sources in the San Fernando Valley. It comes out of both the end of Victory Boulevard in the hills to the west and to the east out of the Tahunga Wash. And so it's joined by other channelized creeks, and they create a confluence in the Sepulveda Dam Basin, which it was a natural, I mean, the whole San Fernando Valley was a huge lake. And Melanie recognized this and had this vision for this area, which naturally floods. They actually close the gates when the water flows and let it recharge into the baseball fields and the public golf courses. But then there was a vision beyond that. And she was still working on that vision when she succumbed to her long fight against lung cancer. Um, she was even still working on it while she was in her hospital bed and sending out texts to the city councilwoman, Nithya Raman, who was actually at her memorial we all attended recently. The other link to the LA River that she was very proud of was the forming of there were two state parks. There were going to be developments and turned out to be park projects. The one called Rio de Los Angeles, which was over Taylor Yards, which was an old train switching yard, is where she spent a lot of her focus. It included multi-use. So there's softball and soccer fields and administrative community house, but there was a whole part of it up towards and abutting the LA River that was left natural, both as a laboratory and as an educational process. And in that, there was a beautiful tile bench created to look like a meander out of blue tile, and little pictures of people and the people who had worked on it, the community groups, the kids, and the artist, Sarah Siegel, who was not a tile artist, but worked hard on it. That was built in 2007 when the park opened. We are now, as we discussed at the first memorial, restoring that. And I think that was a big moment and something she wanted to be remembered for.
So where would, if one was going to take let's say, if you could take a raft ride on the Los Angeles River, where would you start, and what would it look like going all the way down? What would that trip be like going all the way down to the ocean?
Right, to the ocean. So we actually, Melanie and I, actually did that river ride in kayaks. It was a project done by a documentarian, and it became a documentary called Rock the Boat. Melanie's prominently shown in it. It was a 2-day adventure, or in my case, a misadventure. We started out in the San Fernando Valley in that Sepulveda Dam Basin where the water table is so high, it's actually broken through the concrete and trees have grown and, herons and birds are there. People actually fish for carp and, sometimes on a subsistence level, sometimes people are living down within that channel, which is very dangerous because it very quickly gets flashy and goes wall to wall mud. And you end up seeing shopping carts and other things up into the higher levels of the tree when the water drops back down. But the day we started was in that slow water open space. And as a group, we started paddling down. We were accompanied by some journalists and photojournalists as well. And Melanie has always had her dog with her. Um, and it was pretty rough paddling because very effectively the channel takes the water out. If I had realized it, I would have asked for some release from the Tillman treatment plant, which is an integral piece to all of this too, which is recycled wastewater treated to the point that it could be discharged into the river. It's also used for irrigation for the golf courses in that open space. But Melanie really stood out kind of as a paddler educator and created what then is now, and you can go in these soft bottom areas and there's short expeditions and you can get in boats on the LA River, which isn't what people would imagine when they see it. We realized a lot of people, including kids in different neighborhoods, didn't even realize it was a river. So the ultimate vision is to create both a bicycle path all the way along. There is parts of it you can bicycle along. There's an annual bike ride that does a piece of that, but also next to the studios and other areas. So you could either walk or bicycle and have access. There's a lot of pocket parks, small parks through there that are very effective. And I had such a rough time of it actually that I didn't do the second day. I actually had an opportunity to take a indigenous intern from Minnesota out in the ocean. It was pretty rough paddling, but Melanie was there in front and I was kind of tagging along in the back. And I think it was one of those moments because the real reason we were doing it was so the Clean Water Act applied. If you can say a river is navigable, which means you've gotten a boat down through it, then the Clean Water Act would apply to all the rivers of the Southwest, and that's what we did.
She was trying to make it navigable all the way. Okay, first of all, just backtrack for a second. What's the exact source of all the water coming into the river? What are the sources, which mountains?
So the watershed itself includes the mountains around the San Fernando Valley and the Tujunga Wash. So the steep mountains on the east side and hills to the west, some of which we kept open. There's a huge development called the Amundsen Ranch, which is actually right at the source, which is now open space. And then all of the runoff that storm drains capture within what would be the fifth largest city in California if it had become an independent city in the San Fernando Valley. The Pacoima Wash, where there's a great community group called Pacoima Beautiful. Melanie worked with a lot of youth towards the end and other groups. So there's a greater coalition of groups and people interested in the river itself. But part of that,
what role? I mean, how much water? Going back to the history of the founding of Los Angeles a couple hundred years ago or so, what was the? How long did that live?
So over 200 years ago, LA was supported initially by the water that ran off and was drawn from the what's called the Mother Ditch, drawn from the LA River into the historic old plaza in Los Angeles. And before that, indigenous lived, had culture and food, all from the LA rivers. Steelhead trout ran up the river. up into the Arroyo Seco, which is another tributary that comes down out of the hills above Pasadena and JPL. All that water would flow naturally. There are times there was sometimes more water in the system, and other times less, because we're now including the treated wastewater into that flow. To be clear, this water is clean, and they're now cleaning it up to a higher level called pure water, which Melanie had promoted as well. I think one of the things that she did that was very effective too, there's a guy named Brad Lancaster in Tucson, Arizona, that took a very dry desert block, houses on either end, and turned it into a green area by capturing and reusing water and putting it back in the ground. She did that in the San Fernando Valley in the Woodman Avenue project as an example of what could be done in other places. So you're essentially capturing that first flush, often of has the most pollutants, and filtering it, and it eventually goes down through the ground and runs off, instead of just diverting it all, and then all the pollution ends up, and you can see it where the water comes out in Long Beach, including all the plastic and trash and everything else. So this is her nature-based solutions that she was always making sure was inserted in any kind of engineering project as well.
So literally, how far if there's water available, could you go and travel? Could you? I mean,
So we went the whole length of the river.
You go the whole length of
Oh, they did the second day. There are certain areas where it's kind of channeled into a narrow channel. We actually did a little white watering, and then we had these open spaces. There's another one, what's called the Glendale Narrows, which is, there's sand and natural meandering of the river because the water table is so high there as well that it's broken through. And then there are other parts where it's just kind of flat. And, I was tailing behind and dragging my kayak. and and so you need to maintain some sort of flow. You want to have a constant flow in a river. But there's also these western rivers. You can look at the Santa Clara River that runs out by Oxnard and others. They'll be completely dry, and that's part of their cycle too. And then they get high and flashy. And historically, the natural lagoons, which often have turned into marinas now, would be the deltas where the water would naturally clean up through wetlands. And we've lost most of that, and we're trying to recreate some of that as well.
So I think what you did is also part of, in effect, and deliberately, I guess, obviously too, a movement to say, that one of the ways of adapting to climate change is to restore the water cycle, and that restoring the natural surroundings and the watersheds and so on helps to save moisture and the soil and the trees and everything else, which is a way that scientists now are saying is a significant way potentially of dealing with the climate adaptation. Are you
right? You can't you can try to corral nature, but you can't control it. And with the extremes of climate change, and we've just seen them here in Southern California with the kind of whiplashes, of intense storm and then completely dry, and now another set of flooding and intense storm. People can say that all the water that goes out to the ocean is wasted, but it isn't wasted. It causes a function, and Melanie would always try to explain the cycles of nature and why we need to respect them, and probably now more than ever. And I've really been touched in the planning for her next memorial, which is on Sunday, the 25th of January. It'll be less formal, less speakers from the city, and more people able to get up and talk about their own personal interactions with her. But also,
the address, let's see the exact place of that. I've got it here on my phone here, but
yeah, so that's also at the state park, the Rio de Los Angeles, which is off San Fernando Road. And it is, when you Google it, you want to make sure the entrance as far north as possible. But we are, planning another memorial for her. I was touched by how many people came, how many people had experiences with Melanie that impacted her, some that I know from doing environmental and water policy work, but others I didn't. Um, just a really broad breadth of people she had a huge impact on. We also had to break down her apartment. So the story, my last story of Melanie was that she literally was we were giving an award for a group called the uh, localizing California waters, which is a great organization that has a yearly conference. It is used to be on the western side and north of Yosemite, which is almost a little bit too far for me. Melanie actually drove up there 2 years ago, and then virtually last year she participated. This year, this year it was in the Eastern Sierra in Mammoth, which to me seemed close. And I was actually going to possibly take Melanie up there, but her lung cancer had come back and mutated, and the DNA chemo that she was using was no longer effective. So we were giving her an award, and she was on standby. And while we were during the award ceremony, she was texting me that she had gone into the emergency room. She was driven to the emergency room with her dog at Cedars. And in that time, she was hospitalized. So we actually did the presentation with Facebook Live with the group and Melanie talking from her hospital bed. She was still in pretty good shape. And she was conversing with everybody, saying hello to the people she knew, and it was very touching. They gave her a beautiful color photo of the High Sierra, which the next day early, as the conference had ended, I drove back. Um, a couple of car pullers dropped them off and drove right to Cedars Hospital and went up and saw her, put the poster up on her wall. Her little dog was sitting in the bed with her. And she said, so what award? I didn't understand. It wasn't tightly organized, but what award did I get? And I said, well, it's called the Golden Pen for the way you've communicated so well and for so long with people. And she said, but why didn't I get the Lifetime Achievement Award? I said, well, honestly, they gave it to one of the sponsors. And she said, oh, okay, I get it. But I said, you were the one who really deserved it. And the woman who received the award agreed to that as well. So,
Let me ask you one last
2 or 3 days later, she passed away. Yeah.
about her legacy there. So how is this? There are other San Diego.
So there are other rivers and programs. Amigos de los Rios runs a program that's very effective and educational and does small parks. Claire Robinson runs that. And so there are others that ran parallel type programs. But I would say, Melanie would have staff at times. The money came and went, which made it difficult for her often. She lived on grants. But there are people who do this work that, work for institutions, work for agencies, work for regulators, work for environmental groups, work for community-based organizations. And then there's some people that really just work independently and interact with others. And that's what Melanie was very effective at doing. And when we went through her apartment, as I was going to mention, she had hoped to have a hospice at home and be able to have friends come and give away her collection of art and books and maps. And so her office was in her apartment at the end. And she wanted to do that, but wasn't able to. So it was opened up and we went over, and I was going through her books. She and I both had a large collection of books. And I realized beyond the water books and extensive and land use and everything else, some of which went to the Huntington Library. She had a really intellectual interest in stuff without going to college that she had taught herself so much over time. I also noticed that a few of her books were ones I had lent her that were still in her collection. So I'm looking to take those books and then, uh, figure out where they should go, a school or someplace that may not have access to as much and have an interest in water, and to carry on her work because she was always interested in working with youth and others, um, right to the end. And I don't think I've seen many bureaucrats cry at a memorial, but they did, recounting how she was, never stopped doing the work right up to her death, was interested in promoting her vision for the San Fernando
Well, it
Bay.
shows how the dedicated actions of one individual can spread and have a great effect.
And really have a legacy. And I didn't really understand how there's a lot of people. I mean, we work in a relatively small, it seems like there's only 100 people in our world that we keep talking to each other, but she had a much greater expanse of people that I hadn't met. And then she had that whole other life, which I think was very effective for what she did, where she was both a performer and an actress in New York City. And she came back because she wanted to do something and make a difference where she grew up, and she did.
Great. Well, I've put the time and the address for the celebration of Melanie Winter, Sunday, January 25th, 3 to 6 p.m. at Rio de Los Angeles State Park. And I'm going to, I think when the recorded version of this goes out, I think I can put that in the text area of, of the email.
Yeah, I sent you the flyer, right, with a picture of a very young Melanie Winter. Yeah.
I'll put that out to everyone. And it's been great learning about her. And I think she's a great example for what can be done, and for all of us who are interested in
And
bringing some sanity to the way we manage water.
And if I can just say, John, I think she was really good at showing up. She showed up at everything. She was at meetings. She was a little late, but she made an entrance and made a statement. And so she didn't just show up. She actually made noise, which is really what you have to do to be heard. So I think that was a really good lesson for people to learn just by participating and essentially inserting yourself in a process to make it come out as she always wanted to do as nature based as possible, and to have the study and background and proposals like her one for the San Fernando Basin, which should be a legacy project for her. I mean, we shouldn't just name a city council meeting and memorial for her. We should actually continue to do the work.
And that's right. That's one of the goals of SoCal Water Awards, is to get people to show up. Actually, it's about transparency, showing up. And whatever water agency is involved in something you care about, and the Metropolitan Water District, the LA Department of Water and Power, and all your local water districts show up. It makes huge difference if you do it consistently. And anyways, Conner, thank you very much. And I hope to see some of the people we've got. I don't know, about 30 or 20 or 30 people here who are listening today, and that's watching. And maybe we'll see some of them out there on the 25th. I'll be out there and try to live stream as appropriate out there. Maybe talk to some people out there at that time as well.
I want to thank you and Southern California Water Awards, John, for doing this and giving exposure to an extraordinary person who just kind of, as a force of nature, did this work for so many years, and hopefully others will carry that on. And I think I have to mention also, this isn't easy work we do. And when you're doing it on your own, you don't have a lot of resources, but you're dedicated. It was her vocation. But she would also talk about her own mental health and stuff. And in these times, I think it's good for people to remember to keep in touch with people and to see how they are doing and let them know how you're doing as well.
Yeah, great. Absolutely. All right. Thank you very much, Conner, and to all the people who tuned in. And we'll be having more of these live broadcasts coming up in the future with other, I'll say, water influencers. So this is yourself and Melanie Winters. Okay, thank you very much, and good day to everyone.